The word cozy has to be the most overused term in modern gaming, but with Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake, I simply cannot think of another word that suits this game better. It's common knowledge that I'm a massive Dragon Quest fan at this point, so if you want a purely impartial review, then maybe this isn't the place for you to go. But if you want to hear from somebody that really loves the series and wants to see what's done with Dragon Quest III, you're in the right place. Every year I get sick around winter and I end up playing a JRPG to review that I really end up loving. 2022 it was Chained Echoes, 2023 it was Dragon Quest Monsters 3 The Dark Prince, and this year it's Dragon Quest III. JRPGs in general are kind of a strange breed in that they are cozy games, but because so many of them are so invested in emotional response in their stories, you can't really define them that way if they want you to feel something really strongly. But with DQ3, because it's a remake of the original Dragon Quest III from the NES, the story actually isn't quite so windy and twisty and crazy. It's quite simple, and that actually is a benefit to this game rather than a detriment. So when I say that this game fits the cozy archetype really well, I mean every word of it. The fact that I was ill and I just got to cuddle up in my bed with my PlayStation Portal and just play this game was joyful. I could sit here and gawk at how amazing this game looks, at how the HD-2D engine works so well for old school Dragon Quest, and talk about how the remastered music is just fantastic from start to finish. But I've already made a video about HD-2D and how much I've loved every product it's had, so go and watch that one if you want to hear about that. One thing I noticed that was really interesting playing DQ3 though is that it has an option for graphics versus performance, and maybe this is basic of me, but playing through the game for nearly 30 hours, I didn't notice a difference between the two, and I swapped between them fairly often. So for those of you who want to know whether Dragon Quest III requires play of other Dragon Quest games, absolutely not. Ironically, Dragon Quest III is actually the beginning of the Erdrick trilogy, which started with the very first game back in the 80s. But by having Dragon Quest III come first and Dragon Quest I and II HD-2D Remake come later, we're actually getting the trilogy in a chronological order rather than a release date order. When I say the story for Dragon Quest III is simple, it truly is. You play as the child of a great hero who left the country to go and defeat a villainous archfiend, but they failed in their mission and the archfiend is still a threat to the world. So now on your 16th birthday, you then get summoned by the king to go and defeat the archfiend in your father's place. Of course, there are more twists and turns than just that premise, but what you really want from a Dragon Quest game is its humour and its charm, and Dragon Quest III HD-2D has that in droves. The Dragon Quest humour is out in full force here. I found myself giggling and chuckling repeatedly at just how fantastic it all is. Monster names are funny. Dialogue is funny. I loved going and visiting the town in which every character spoke entirely in haiku. You can go for a little bit of puff puff if that's what you're into. There's just so much amusement and fun to be had in Dragon Quest that I just loved every second of it. And besides, by not being bogged down in hour-long cutscenes like a lot of JRPGs do, this means that I'm spending more time playing the game and less time watching it. Combat in DQ3 is as simple and effective as old-school JRPG combat gets. It's turn-based, it's stat-based, there's job systems in it, or vocations as they're called in this game, including a brand new one called Monster Wrangler, which I played for the majority of the time I've played. It's really good. And more importantly, it's both efficient and challenging. Player AI is shockingly competent to the point where it almost makes some of the random mob fights feel a bit autopilot-y, but I don't think that that's a bad thing if comfort and efficiency is what you're after, and there's definitely challenges to be had in the boss fights and some of the later game enemies as well. And if you want a real challenge, then the well-known difficulty setting from other DQ games, Draconian Quest, is available from the start, and you can turn off markers for mission objectives as well. Dragon Quest III starts out pretty linear at first, but that's just so you can get your bearings. After a while, it'll open up, and it'll open up hard, and there'll be loads of different places that you can explore. We also have the vocation system in this game to encourage player expression. You might choose to use a team full of physical attackers using weapons like whips and boomerangs to tackle multiple enemies all at once, or mages and priests for typical magic users, or you might even go off the beaten path with more eclectic choices like the Gadabout or the previously mentioned Monster Wrangler. But don't pick a Gadabout first for your own sake. You'll be given the ability to swap vocations later on in the game, but you won't want to be stuck with one early on. Trust me, They have their uses, but save it till later. I think one of my favourite things about the HD-2D style, as I spoke about in my video about it, is the ability for it to show as much expression as it does without relying on modern technologies. And given the likes of Dragon Quest XI, which ooze personality from start to finish, you only have to look at characters like Veronica or Sylvando to know that, you'll be pleased to know that a lot of the characters in Dragon Quest III have that too. They may not be as deep as characters from the later entries in the Dragon Quest franchise, like 8 or 11, but they have so much charm that they do stick in your mind long after they leave. There's so much to do outside of the typical main story as well, like you have loads of reasons to go off the beaten path. There are secret spots all over the world map, monsters to collect not just for your monster wrangler, but to use in a monster arena, which is really evocative of Dragon Quest Monsters, a spin-off of what became Dragon Quest III, and that makes me really happy to see the origin point of where that franchise started. To be honest with you, DQ3 HD-2D Remake has given me everything I would have wanted from a remake of an old Dragon Quest game. It's comfortable to play, it's challenging where I want it to be, it looks stunning, it sounds beautiful. No notes. I do think some people might be bothered by the fact that you can't see the player characters while in combat, so you can't see them act like you would in other RPGs, but that's a hallmark of what Dragon Quest games have always looked like from day one, so it's trying to stay true to its origin. I say that from a personal perspective as somebody who's very invested in the Dragon Quest franchise, but for people who are just getting started in this franchise and want a big sprawling story that's full of emotional highs and lows, then maybe this isn't the game for you. But if you do want something that you can just snuggle up, get comfy, listen to some good music, play an awesome game, then this is great. So I'm being very real when I say that DQ3 could easily be in my top 5 games of this year, and I'm extremely grateful to Square Enix for sending me a copy of the game for the purposes of this review. If this is what we've come to expect from DQ3, then I cannot wait to see what 1 and 2 have to offer. But what do you think? Is Dragon Quest III a game that's already on your radar? Are you a fan of the franchise, same as I am? Are you new to the franchise and want to dip your toes in with DQ3 because it's a great place to jump in? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're not sure what to say, then just say the word algorithm because it's massively helpful for engagement for me as a content creator. So that's going to be it from me. Thank you ever so much for watching. As I said at the beginning of the video, I have already made a video about gushing over the HD-2D style and how much I love it. So if you want to see that, check out the link in the description box below. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen here today, then consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Or if you've enjoyed my content for a while and want to support the channel, then consider clicking on the link in the description box below for my Etsy store where I sell handmade art prints for various characters, or you can support me on Patreon as well. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you have an amazing time with DQ3 just like I have. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.